They thought we were quiet, weak, predictable. The alien survey fleet had passed through our solar system hundreds of times, scanning, recording, judging. Every civilization before us had been cataloged, measured, and either dominated or erased. Humanity had barely registered, a fragile, messy species clinging to a single blue planet. Insignificant, they underestimated what we were capable of. The first warning came as a flicker, a faint signal in the void that no sensor could have predicted. At first, the fleet ignored it, dismissing it as cosmic noise. But it wasn't noise. It was intent. On board the observation vessel, Commander Rhea Talon froze. The signal pulsed again, precise, deliberate, almost aware. Each burst of energy carried a signature of thought, of choice. And then, in the span of a heartbeat, the fleet realized it. The signal wasn't coming from anywhere. They were coming from humans themselves. On Earth, the first humans felt it as a shiver in the mind, a strange awareness that reality was watching them back. No one knew why, but every living soul felt the pull. Something in the stars had noticed them. Something that had always assumed humans were just another species, ready to be cataloged and forgotten. Rhea Talon understood immediately. Humanity had broken the rules of the universe. We had done what no other species could. The fleet tried to respond. Their weapons powered up. Their drones activated. Their algorithms calculated every possible human response. But calculation assumes predictability, and humans had none. Each decision, each instinct, each blink of an eye created a ripple in probability that could not be contained. And the first human to act was not a soldier, not a leader, not even aware of what they were doing. A single engineer aboard a small orbital station flicked a switch on a console, unremarkable, mundane. And in that moment, humanity flexed a muscle it had never known it possessed. The signal flared across the solar system. The stars themselves seemed to hesitate. Time bent slightly around the action. The aliens froze, unable to process the anomaly. Humanity had just said, "We exist, and we are not yours to control." If you want to discover how humans survived the first encounter with a force no one else had ever resisted, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Because this story is only beginning. The observation fleet hung in the void, massive and silent, but for the first time in a million recorded encounters, they did not issue commands. Their algorithms froze. Their weapons, perfectly calibrated to eliminate entire civilizations, remained inert. Humanity had created something the stars themselves could not calculate. On the orbital station, Engineer Lira Voss had no idea what she had done. Her hand still hovered over the console, unsure if the pulse she had sent out into space was real. It was everywhere. The signal propagated faster than any ship, faster than any probe, faster than light, or so it seemed. Every alien sensor, every monitoring device, recorded the same anomaly. Humans acting unpredictably. Humans asserting their presence. Humans existing outside expected probability. The fleet's commander, an alien named Vorith, leaned over a console and hissed in disbelief. "They shouldn't exist," it said. Its voice was synthesized but tinged with frustration. Every calculation shows extinction. Every probability path ends in their destruction. And yet they persist. Inside the station, Lira's colleagues had frozen, unsure of what was happening. Not in stasis, but in hesitation. Each sensed the ripples from her action. The station itself seemed to breathe, almost alive, as though acknowledging her intent. Lights flickered, displays recalibrated. Systems responded not to commands, but to presence. Lira tried to speak, but the words sounded ordinary. Nothing seemed extraordinary, yet the universe itself was bending. The alien fleet began targeting her position, not with weapons, but with probability interference. Entire possible futures erased in microseconds, designed to prevent her next actions. And yet, she moved. Every choice she made, a step, a breath, the decision to reach for a switch, created a ripple. The frozen humans on the station twitched slightly. Machines started responding. Time itself seemed to hesitate, splitting into tiny fragments before reconverging around her. The Continuum fleet realized something terrifying. This wasn't resistance. This wasn't survival instinct. This was humans bending reality with sheer choice. And no matter how many paths they deleted, no matter how many futures they erased, humanity kept existing. Lira's pulse quickened. Somewhere deep in her instincts, she understood what had begun. Humanity wasn't just fighting for survival. They were becoming something the universe had never seen before. The alien fleet reacted violently, forming into a massive perimeter around the station. Energy rippled through the void. Weapons activated, not physical, but mathematical, trying to collapse probability itself. And Lira took another step. It was the moment everything changed. Lira's foot touched the metal floor, and the impossible began to spread. The frozen humans scattered across the station did not awaken immediately, but their potential, the threads of choice they carried, started resonating with her actions. Each micro-decision she made, a breath, a glance, a subtle shift in weight, triggered small ripples that traveled through the probability lattice surrounding every human. It began with tiny movements. A finger twitched, a head turned slightly, a heartbeat sped up. Then, in less than a minute, clusters of humans moved in unison, almost instinctively. Machines, sensors, and drones, previously frozen in perfect stasis, realigned, reacting not to programming but to the human's intent. Reality itself seemed to bend around them. Outside the station, the alien fleet, the Continuum, scrambled. Their constructs were vast, geometric, and near-perfect, designed to anticipate every possible outcome. And yet they failed. Every calculation collapsed the moment human choice intervened. Every deletion attempt backfired. Lira realized that humans weren't just surviving. They were propagating their existence through the very fabric of reality. She sprinted down the corridor, boots echoing softly in a space that seemed alive. Each step generated waves through the frozen lattice. One by one, crew members regained motion, stretching, blinking, reacting. Lira glanced at a maintenance drone hovering midair. She reached out. It rotated perfectly into alignment, not by code, but by her intention. For the first time, the Continuum understood the terrifying truth. Humans were not bound by probability in a way any other species was. Every decision, no matter how trivial, became an anchor in reality. They weren't passive nodes to be deleted. They were active forces capable of reshaping existence around them. Lira reached the bridge. Hundreds of humans were still waking, scattered, unsure. She raised her hand instinctively, and the motion propagated. Humans nearby mirrored her intent, awakening together as one network. The station shivered softly, as if acknowledging the shift. Outside, the alien constructs paused. Their geometries twisted, lights bending unpredictably. Every system designed to erase humans was failing. Every protocol assumed compliance, but humans did not comply. They acted, and in their acting, they became something no intelligence could anticipate. Lira. She didn't yet understand the full scope of what was happening. She only knew that humanity had just begun to defy the universe itself. The Continuum didn't hesitate this time. Their constructs surged forward, not with conventional weapons, but with something far more insidious. Targeted probability collapses designed to erase humans before they could act. Outside the station, space itself shimmered, bending around invisible forces that attempted to prune every possible human action. Inside the bridge, Lira felt the pressure almost like a physical weight pressing down on her mind. The air around her didn't change, but reality resisted her every thought. Each blink, each step, each heartbeat felt as though the universe itself was pushing back. But she had learned something in the past minutes. Humans were not passive. Choice itself was a weapon. Every action she took rippled outward, countering the Continuum's deletions. She glanced at the slowly awakening crew. Engineers, technicians, and scientists, all ordinary humans, were now moving instinctively. Their simple, coordinated actions began to propagate through the station's systems, stabilizing machinery that had been frozen mid-operation. A single technician's choice to flip a circuit switch set off a chain reaction, realigning life support and communications panels. It was not magic nor technology. This was human will manifesting in reality itself. Outside, the alien constructs adapted, warping geometry to anticipate outcomes. Probability collapses were initiated, futures were deleted, branches cut clean, but every micro-decision from humans created a feedback loop the Continuum had never calculated. Each ripple fed into another, making the lattice of probability chaotic and unpredictable. Lira sprinted across the bridge. A frozen security officer raised his hand to grab a console, then twitched, then fully moved. Another crew member drew a tool from a suspended toolbox, now responding to intent rather than programming. With each human awakening, the station hummed, alive with possibility. The network was forming. The humans were no longer isolated nodes. They were an interconnected web of defiance. The Continuum realized their simulations were useless. Every strike they attempted was countered before it fully existed. Humanity was no longer a species to observe. They were a force rewriting the rules. Lira's pulse quickened. She knew the real battle had only begun. Every decision from now on mattered, not just for her survival, but for all of humanity. The station shuddered as probability itself began to bend around Lira and the waking humans. The Continuum's constructs surged again, this time focusing on the station's core. Their attacks weren't conventional. They didn't fire energy or projectiles. Instead, they attempted to erase entire timelines, removing potential outcomes in which humans could survive. Each pulse should have frozen, deleted, or unmade them. But it didn't. Lira took a deep breath and acted. She didn't fire a weapon. She didn't command anyone. She made a choice. A simple, deliberate decision to step forward and activate the station's core systems. The moment her hand touched the console, reality shifted subtly. Lights flickered, then stabilized. Machines resumed functioning, not by design, but by intent. The frozen humans began moving in coordinated ripples, responding instinctively to her decisions. Outside, the alien constructs faltered. Their probability manipulations collided with the human's network of choice. Every deletion pulse sent outward was countered by the living lattice of human decisions. One human breathing, one hand moving, one simple choice, it was enough. Humanity didn't fight with weapons. Humanity fought with existence itself. Lira glanced around. Her colleagues, ordinary people until minutes ago, were now nodes in a living system. Every action reinforced another. Every movement became a shield, a countermeasure, a strike. Even the smallest gestures. Walking down a hallway, flipping a switch, stabilizing a machine, sent ripples outward, distorting the Continuum's control. The alien fleet hesitated. In all their calculations, no algorithm had predicted this level of adaptability. They had controlled, erased, and extinguished countless species across the galaxy. But humans were different. Humans didn't merely survive within probability. They became the anchor of it, bending reality by their very choices. Lira raised her hand instinctively. Around her, humans mirrored the motion. The station thrummed with energy, not energy in the conventional sense, but the weight of coordinated existence. The Continuum realized for the first time that this species couldn't be deleted. Humanity had found its edge. As the station stabilized, Lira began to notice the pattern. Humans were no longer acting as individuals. They were connected through something intangible, a lattice of potential linking every conscious decision. Each choice reinforced another, creating a network that even the Continuum could not calculate. She waved her hand, testing the system. Tiny movements spread through the station like ripples on water. Crew members instinctively followed the rhythm. their actions synchronized without coordination. A frozen engineer reached for a console. Another corrected a misaligned drone. Each micro-action sent feedback into the probability lattice, reinforcing the station's stability. The Continuum attempted another strike. Outside the viewport, massive geometric constructs shifted, warping space and time in an attempt to collapse the lattice. Probability branches were targeted, futures deleted, paths erased. But every human in the station countered it unconsciously. One small choice. Blinking, stepping, breathing, propagated through the network, undoing the deletion before it could take effect. Lira realized the truth. Humanity's strength wasn't in technology, strategy, or brute force. It was in their capacity to act unpredictably, collectively, and instinctively. The Continuum could calculate every mechanical variable, every weapon trajectory, every environmental condition, but it could not calculate human will. Her pulse quickened as the station began to hum. The lattice extended beyond the immediate crew. Systems that had been frozen for centuries, drones, robotics, even automated defenses, reacted to human intent. Every choice, every micro-action, every instinctive decision became a strike, a shield, and a signal all at once. The Continuum tried to counter, focusing all their power on erasing the station entirely. But the network of choice had grown too large. Human action could no longer be targeted individually. Each human was part of a living probability shield, every decision reinforcing another. Lira exhaled, a mixture of awe and determination washing over her. Humanity had discovered something no other species had ever possessed: existence itself as a weapon. Outside the station, the Continuum's constructs began to shimmer, edges bending and twisting unnaturally. Their calculations, once flawless, were failing. Every deletion pulse, every attempt to remove potential outcomes, was being countered by the human's lattice of choice. The fleet that had erased countless civilizations across galaxies now hesitated, uncertain. Inside, Lira watched her colleagues fully awaken. Engineers, medics, and security personnel, all ordinary humans, moved instinctively, acting without orders, yet coordinating perfectly through the invisible network. Machines responded to them as if alive, realigning systems, correcting minor failures, stabilizing energy cores. Humanity had turned choice into action and action into defense. A flash of movement caught Lira's eye. A drone, suspended midair by the Continuum's interference, twisted under the combined influence of the human's collective intent. One technician, unaware of the ripple she created, reached to stabilize it, and the drone obeyed her touch. Another human made a small adjustment to the station's navigation panel, and the probability distortions outside faltered again. The Continuum's perfect algorithms began to clash with each other. One construct would erase a potential human future, while another inadvertently restored it. Entire segments of their network spiraled into contradiction. For the first time in their existence, certainty failed them. Lira felt the weight of possibility pressing against her. She understood instinctively what had begun. The station wasn't just surviving. It was teaching the universe a new rule. Humans were unbound by traditional probability. Every choice propagated, strengthened, and reinforced the lattice. Every movement became an act of defiance. Her pulse quickened as she realized the broader implications. Humanity wasn't just fighting for survival. It was reshaping the rules of reality itself. And the Continuum, for all its power and precision, had never faced a species that could do that. The station thrummed with an energy no one could measure. Humans, fully awake now, were moving together without needing to coordinate consciously. Every simple action, flipping a switch, stepping toward a console, stabilizing a machine, sent ripples outward, reinforcing the probability lattice. Each ripple countered the Continuum's attacks, undoing their deletions before they could take effect. Lira's heart raced. She realized that humanity was no longer isolated nodes fighting individually. They had become a collective force of potential, each person a link in a network the Continuum could not predict or control. Every micro-decision created waves that propagated through the station and out into the void, into the space surrounding the orbital station where alien constructs hovered. The Continuum launched their most aggressive intervention yet. Full-spectrum probability collapse. Every human future, every possible outcome where humans acted, was targeted simultaneously. Yet even as they tried to erase them, the network held. The humans weren't just surviving. They were expanding their influence across the lattice of reality itself. Lira moved through the bridge, watching her colleagues awaken fully. One technician grabbed a frozen tool, another adjusted a drone, while others recalibrated systems mid-operation. Their movements were instinctive, yet perfectly synchronized with the invisible lattice. Each action amplified another, each breath and heartbeat reinforcing the network. Humanity's potential had become a self-sustaining force. Outside, the alien construct shuddered. Calculations failed. Deletion attempts backfired. For the first time, the Continuum encountered something they could not override, predict, or erase. Humans were alive, not because they were permitted, but because they chose to exist. Lira realized that the battle was no longer about survival. It was about asserting humanity's existence across the universe, and the Continuum had never faced a species capable of doing that. The alien constructs outside twisted violently as their calculations failed again and again. Every deletion pulse the Continuum unleashed was neutralized by the humans' network of intent. Their perfect algorithms, designed to anticipate every action, could not predict choice. And choice was multiplying. Every awakened human was a new node in the lattice. Every action a strike against control itself. Inside the station, Lira and her crew began to act with increasing awareness. Movements became deliberate, coordinated, yet instinctive. Engineers realigned core systems. Medics stabilized drones, and security personnel adjusted the station's defenses, all without orders, all through the subtle resonance of human intent. The probability lattice responded as if alive, bending around their decisions, protecting them, amplifying them. The Continuum tried to escalate. Their constructs emitted pulses that should have frozen entire corridors, erased entire timelines. But every strike encountered feedback loops of choice. A human moved here, a hand twitched there, and the lattice compensated, undoing the deletion before it could take effect. The alien fleet was no longer a threat. They were observers of a phenomenon they could not control. Lira's pulse raced as she realized the implications. Humans were no longer reacting, they were initiating. Every small action propagated outward, reinforcing the network and extending it beyond the station. The universe itself seemed to hesitate, unsure which threads to sever and which to allow. Humanity had become an active agent in the structure of reality, not a passive species contained by it. For the first time, the Continuum faced defeat, not from force, not from weapons, but from existence itself. Humanity was alive, unerasable, and spreading. The war for survival had shifted. It was no longer a battle for life. It was a battle for reality itself. With the Continuum faltering, Lira realized it was time to move from defense to action. Humans could no longer wait for survival. They had to assert themselves. Each awakened crew member became a conduit of intent, a living node in the probability lattice. Simple actions, a step forward, flipping a switch, stabilizing machinery, now had strategic impact, extending humanity's influence across the station and into the void. The alien constructs attempted to isolate the station, bending space, warping time, and collapsing probability around it. But every interference was countered in real time. Uman zakta, instinctively, deliberately, unpredictably. A single engineer's hand motion caused multiple drones to realign, creating cascading effects that rendered the Continuum's calculations useless. Each small choice amplified another, reinforcing the lattice of human existence. Lira moved through the bridge, eyes sharp. She saw a technician reach out to a control panel frozen mid-cycle. The moment he touched it, systems came alive, lights stabilized, consoles recalibrated, communication links restored. Each awakening was more than survival. It was humanity asserting dominance through choice. The aliens could manipulate matter and energy, but they could not erase intent, and humans had mastered it instinctively. Outside, the fleet's constructs began faltering visibly. Edges twisted, light refracted unpredictably, and pulses meant to erase probability backfired, collapsing in on themselves. The Continuum could no longer control the outcome. Humanity was no longer reactive. They were initiators of reality, bending the very rules the aliens had relied on for eons. Lira raised her hand instinctively. Around her, awakened humans mirrored the motion. The network pulsed with synchronized energy. The station itself seemed to hum with life, amplifying human will. For the first time in cosmic history, a species had learned to exist as a force the universe could not ignore. The Continuum's fleet began to falter in earnest. Constructs shimmered and twisted in ways no logic could predict. Every deletion pulse they unleashed was undone by the human's lattice of choice. Probability itself had become a battlefield, and humanity had discovered how to fight with it. Inside the station, Lira moved swiftly through the bridge, observing her crew. They were ordinary humans, engineers, medics, security personnel, but now each of them was part of a living network. Every movement, every small decision propagated outward, reinforcing the structure of existence around them. The station thrummed with energy, not mechanical, not technological, but human intent made tangible. A security officer, previously frozen mid-step, reached out to stabilize a drone, and instantly the device responded perfectly. Another technician reactivated a console with a casual gesture, realigning multiple systems at once. Each simple act created ripples that propagated beyond the station, reaching into the void where the Continuum constructs hovered. Every pulse they tried to send was intercepted by the lattice of human decisions. Lira realized something profound. This was no longer a defensive battle. Humanity had learned to manipulate reality itself. Every human was a node, every choice a strand, and collectively, they were a living shield against erasure. The Continuum's infinite calculations had failed because humans were not just unpredictable, they were uncontainable. Outside, the alien fleet hesitated for the first time in millennia. They had faced countless species, wiped out billions, but none had ever resisted in this way. Humans were not merely surviving. They were rewriting the rules of engagement, forcing the Continuum to respond in real time to a force they could not anticipate. Lira took a deep breath. The station was alive, her crew awake, and the lattice of choice had extended beyond the station's walls. Humanity had turned the tide. For the first time, the Continuum faced a species it could not control. The station pulsed with life. Humans moved freely now, each action deliberate yet instinctive, each choice reinforcing the network of potential that had defeated the Continuum's perfect calculations. Lira stood at the center of the bridge, watching ordinary humans. Engineers, medics, security personnel perform extraordinary feats simply by acting, deciding, and existing. Outside, the Continuum constructs trembled in the void. They were vast, incomprehensible, and precise, but every deletion, every probability collapse had failed. Humanity was no longer a species to observe. They were an active force rewriting reality itself. Every human movement, every decision propagated through the lattice, making them unerasable. Lira raised her hand instinctively. Around her, the awakened crew mirrored her motion. The station responded as one entity, amplifying human intent. Systems realigned, drones stabilized, and energy flowed perfectly, not by programming, not by technology, but by sheer will. Humans were no longer passive participants in the universe. They were operators of reality itself. The Continuum hesitated, unable to comprehend this new phenomenon. Algorithms failed, constructs faltered, and the void itself seemed uncertain. Humanity had discovered something no other species had ever known. Existence could not be dictated. It had to be claimed through choice. In that moment, humanity was unbound. They had survived not through weapons or strategy, but through their ability to act unpredictably, collectively, and with intent. The universe had tried to erase them. They had refused. For the first time in cosmic history, humans existed as a force no intelligence could control. The war for survival had ended the moment humanity refused to be erased. They were alive, unerasable, and the stars would never forget it.